You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaffe.
And me, Danny Denhardt.
And Dan, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, we're going to dive into what I've called why high potential and high performers will demand more from their companies, and that's all thanks to AI. So one sentence explainer is AI is helping high potential employees and high performers to progress their career more quickly. And they're always going to do that, whether it's a tech change or something else. It's helping them accelerate and leapfrog ahead of their colleagues. So I think my prediction is, and I'm seeing it and I've been told this through conversations, it's creating a divide through the teams and through departments. And very often it's through the use of AI and high potential and high performers adopting AI. What do you think, Jonathan? Have you experienced it or have you heard anything about it? What's your take?
Yeah, no, I think, as we've talked about before, Dan, if I look at the workshops that I ran through the autumn of 25 into the winter, it was a fairly straightforward sort of pattern quite often. If you've got a dozen people in a room, 2 or 3 will be all over AI. The majority have done a bit with it, and then 1 or 2 have not touched it at all. And that was a kind of standard kind of bell curve distribution of people's experiences with it. I think those people that were all over it, they're already they're writing GPTs and they're starting to do clever things with it, and they're even developing their own agents. So they are accelerating, I think. If you want, the stretch of that bell curve is getting more and more, as you say. And so the guys who are really doing things with it are really starting to motor. And then at the other end, there are people who are resistive and or not interested yet, who are still in the same state they were. And I think that's one of the challenges for businesses is how do you manage that increasing bell curve?
Yeah, and I've experienced very similar. I've been talking to different companies more recently, and I've heard people call out the AI whizzes, and they've said they're really accelerating it, but people are going to them to ask for their opinion or prompts or tools or workflow amends as opposed to doing it themselves. So there is this like stealing of time and skills from these AI whizzes in quotes. The extension to your points are as high potential employees always look for ways to improve their performance, whether that's through learning or through developing tools. And AI is one that they're always going to dive into. They want to understand it and they're going to leverage it. And high potential employees are the ones that know their time is now and have to accelerate their career. Whereas high performers use things to understand where it can help them and where it will actually hinder them. So AI is for many, is going to help them, but actually it's going to help act as an assistant or an EA. It's going to help them with some of the complexities of their work. And what I found through high performers over time and managing for 20 odd years is high performers know when to lean into something or step out of something. And that's what they're uniquely good at. And I've seen it quite a few times in talking to people and through coaching is high performers are improving radically and really, really quickly because they're adopting it in analysis and things that they're not very good at, or that they don't feel like they could get better ROI by using a different tool. And what the two things mean for me is there's going to be a divide for those who are great at using AI and improving their work and their productivity, and their colleagues are either going to get in their way or slow them down. And managers have to be aware of it and then really challenge it and work that through. So I think something that you said earlier on, Jonathan, is there's going to be a balance and there's going to be a real weight on the manager's head. So it might be worth diving into that and seeing what you think a manager can do or what they should do in this sort of scenario.
Yeah, I think we've said for a long time, have we not? We've said, whatever happens in the medium term with AI, will it take everybody's job by 2040? Who knows? Will it wipe mankind out by 2050? We don't know. Without question, though, we would encourage anybody in employment now to get your head around AI to whatever level you're comfortable. And particularly anyone listening to the pod who's under 35, you really should be getting your head around this stuff because it's going to make a big difference the next few years. So we would encourage anyone to get as far as they can with it. And we're seeing that, as you said, this kind of split. Now, the challenge for the leaders and managers is around, okay, so what do? I have to give those people their head. They're going to go and do the real productivity gain stuff, the innovation stuff. You got to let them do that within the guidelines of the business. But then what do we do? Do we allow that gap to open up between the real super champions and the people who are more resistive or less interested? Do we try and bring everybody with us? How do we do that? And does that mean then that we've got to use some of the time of the people who are the champions? We've talked about having AI champions. Do we allocate some of their time to bringing the people who are less capable at the moment along with them? That's the challenge. You almost do that on a case-by-case basis, business by business. There'll be businesses out there who say this is a great way to sort out who makes the next round of redundancies, because we'll take the people who've done really well and the others we're going to lose from the business as we go. There'll be others saying, no, we need to bring the whole team along. So I'd rather we went a little slower, but we all came along on the boat at the same time. That might be the right answer for your business. It's an absolute challenge for those guys. And linked to it, Dan, I think, is the question of, at the same time as we're saying, okay, so maybe you need to use your champions to help bring along your lesser performers. At the same time, if somebody is really all over advancing with AI and you don't give them enough head, you might find you lose them to somebody who is prepared to support them and let them go with it. So I'm not saying we've got a simple one-line answer here, Dan. I don't think we do, but I think it's important to recognize where the challenge, the start point of getting the answers is to recognize where the challenges are coming. And I think you and I are both seeing those challenges emerging in some of the businesses we're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. I've come up with something as you were talking. There's the retain and train model where you retain the high performers, high potentials, and then they train everyone around them. And like the captains and champions, as we said a number of times before, I think you have to drive adoption across the team, and that comes from training. And by training to retain people, that gives department leaders and managers a real opportunity to drive the business forward. One thing I would be very mindful of over the next few months are, don't overload the people who have gone all in on AI or have really understood it under the bonnet, because what that will do is it will create two jobs for them as opposed to for them to be successful in their job and within their department to do that. And I know I've heard this a number of times, is that there's that one or two people that in that business that people go to and they over rely on them to do everything. So if you're in that position as a business leader or a department leader, I would do everything you can to protect, to retain them, and then do the retain and train model after that, because that's the only way that you're going to be particularly successful in this divide between high performers and high potentials and those who don't want to adopt AI.
That makes complete sense, Dan. What's our TLDR then for people on this one?
If you're seeing a divide in your team, whether that's through high potential or high performers, and it's coming down to and connected to AI, you're going to have to bring people closer together and invest in training. You're also going to have to do a really good job in team management and personnel performance management, because what you're going to have to do is reduce down the stress and strain of someone being good and having a high skill set. And then also just identify where you need workshops, where you'll need hackathons, where you'll need internal and external help. And always just consider the captain and champions in the departments and cross-functionally, and help invest in them and to retain them and to give them extra reasons to stay within the business, because they're going to be highly, highly sought out in the marketplace. So train, retain, and develop people, and just keep an eye on people's performance and skills. And just remember, AI output still isn't 100%. So sometimes you just have to check that too.
Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.